Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book, The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England, written by Brandon Sanderson. I should say this book is written by Cecil G. Bagsworth III. Cecil is like the fake author of the book, which is kind of funny. This is the second of the secret projects. Books released by Brandon Sanderson this year. The first book, Tress of the Emerald Sea, I read and loved it, and I put a review on the channel. If you want to see that, just type in my name and the title, Tress of the Emerald Sea, and the review will magically appear on your screens. But I reviewed Tress of the Emerald Sea and loved it, and so I was really excited about this one, which, by the way, sorry, it's a little torn there in the corner. The bookstore had only a few copies left, and they were all torn in some way, and this was the least beat-up copy, and I wanted to get it on release day to read it and support the author, so I bought it. And I read this book, and it is quite a delightful book. It is the humor in it is on point, and the premise is absolutely fantastic. I just don't like the delivery of some of the themes and some of the payoffs in the book. But let me begin by saying that this book is very much in the style of the time travel disaster tourism that Brandon Sanderson pitched on the Intentionally Blank podcast. If you've listened to him talk about the Titanic 2 Sink Harder concept, you will know, you'll see the similarities to this book. And in fact, I believe that he was talking about it then because he was either writing or had finished writing the book and wanted to test out with the audience what they thought about it. And so it has that idea of this company, the Frugal Wizard, has a way to send you into other dimensions, and that's what happens to our main character. He gets sent into another dimension. He has no idea where he is. He loses all his memories, and he has to slowly learn them, slowly figure out his surroundings, and you learn a little bit about him, and then also about the world he's in, which is a version of medieval England. The first third of the book, first half the book, I'm not sure how to quantify that, but the first portion of the book is extremely funny. The humor is on point, is nonstop, and it is fantastic. There are so many sequences that had me giggling, that had me thinking, oh, this is pretty funny. Sanderson's humor works very well here. There is one particular scene when the main character is trying to get out of a situation, and he tries to pretend to be a wizard and use a spell. And so to do that, he just decides to use nonsense words from our universe, like modern day, that modern day people would say, that are absolutely hilarious. I was guffawing at that sequence. I was having a blast. That sequence is the best part of the book. That is, I could not contain my happiness with that sequence. And that's fairly early on in the book, about in the first 150 pages, somewhere in there. And then as I said, about 150 pages on, it starts becoming a much more serious adventure story. There's still some jokes, but it's pretty much, it becomes the serious adventure story because our character's figuring stuff out, so he's not doing things that are funny anymore, because he's figuring out the world he's in. And the second half of the book wasn't enjoyable for me, not because there wasn't humor, because I'm fine if a book doesn't have humor, but because Sanderson did so many things I didn't like. First of all, there is a kind of anti-religious theme regarding a certain group of characters in the book, and that really bothered me because so much of what I enjoy about Sanderson is how he creates such great themes about religion. You know, my favorite novel of his, and really my favorite novel of all time, Elantris, deals with these themes of religion and of religious people who have different opinions. And some of those people are dealt with in a harsher light, but the idea of promoting religion is still very positive there. And here, you don't have the pro side. It's almost entirely from the anti-side, and not because there's the people are all against religion in the world. It's that the way that they're for their religion is portrayed very badly, and I just didn't like that. And then it just really comes to a head in a certain climactic moment later on that I just did not appreciate. There's also some moral themes in this book regarding people around the main character, and this is where, like, to fully delve into why this bothered me would have to delve into spoilers. But there is something regarding our main character that he discovers that someone has done to him that is just truly awful and immoral and not something that should be celebrated or promoted in books. And you feel the hit of it because you've been cheering for this main character. And I did not like the way it was handled because the characters who did this to our main character did not suffer the consequences that they needed to for it to be thematically okay and for the audience to recover emotionally. Our main character gets past it just fine. So on his side, it works just fine, but I did not like that there were no consequences for the other characters. And there's a couple arguments that could be made here of, oh, it's okay that there was no consequences, because sometimes in life, bad people get away with doing bad things. Or not everything has to have a consequence in a book. I get it, but if you're someone that believes that books should promote virtue, I don't like that there was no consequence for these actions. Not saying you can't deal with the theme of what happened here, but I just don't like that there was no consequences to it. Jumping back to positives, this book, it's a novel that is kind of interspersed with every couple of chapters. There's like a 2 or 3 page, or sometimes even a 1 page thing that has a great illustration by Steve Argyle, who does the artwork in the book. But it has this little 2 or 3 page excerpt from a in-universe book called The Frugal Wizard's Handbook that is a nonfiction book in universe. So it has little citations, little notes, and it has a please see this page at the bottom. And it reads not like a textbook. It reads like a marketing brochure / a how-to manual. It's the Frugal Wizard's Handbook. And that every time I got to that page, I was so excited because it was hilarious. And I was cracking up at the way Sanderson used not just humor, but used real-world irony. Like, there's a moment where he talks about diversity quotas in the book, and in the handbook section. And it was so hilariously ridiculous, and it sounded like he was both trying to make fun of it while at the same time promote it in the book. It was well handled. And then there were also just some great just one-liners in these sections. Like one of the pages, it says, "Can I have a dimension that is only bananas?" Where there's no humans, it's just bananas. And then it says, "No." And then it has a picture that has a dimension full of bananas. And it's just hilarious. So that part of the handbook was delightful, and I really appreciated it. And the artwork was really well done. I appreciated it. If I were to compare this book to something, I think a lot of people, because of the humor alone, will compare it to The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I don't think is a fair comparison. This book has much more plot. It's much more focused. It's a really small-scale story. And even though this is a sci-fi concept of dimensional traveling, it still feels more like a fantasy in that you're dealing with a medieval England type thing. So I'm actually going to compare this to another book series, the Magic Kingdom of Landover series by Terry Brooks. This is specifically I'm referring to the first book in that series, Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold, where the main character finds out there's this magical kingdom that he just has to pay this amount of money. I think it's like $1 million. He pays this money and he goes there, and it's not at all what he thought, but he has to work hard and become the king of this magical kingdom and kind of work from the ground up and try to establish himself as the leader there. And shenanigans ensue, and it's a hilarious book. Very similar to the premise of this book, but this book has the kind of amnesia, I don't know where I am, and whereas this character knows everything the whole time. So If you enjoyed the Frugal Wizard's Handbook, I highly suggest you pick up the Magic Kingdom of Landover, specifically the first book, Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold. This is a bind-up of the first 3 books in this series, but the first book is delightful. And so, when it comes to my overall thoughts, I did enjoy the book. I had fun with it. And of course, as I mentioned, it is hilarious. One of the best humor-related books I've read. However, for a Sanderson book, it just can't stand up for me because I could not stand the themes that he promotes that I talked about. Those themes were just so aggravating for me, and so I don't like how he did themes here. So it bumps it down for me. So when it comes to rating the book, it's actually one of the lowest ratings I'm giving a Sanderson book, but it's still enjoyable, highly readable. You're gonna have a blast doing it. I just think that Sanderson could have done better here. So I'm going to give this book a 7 out of 10. A solid novel in and of itself, but probably the weakest novel that Sanderson's turned in. So if you've read The Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England, what did you think about it? Let me know in the comments. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did you feel mixed? What did you think about those themes? And if you're brave enough, what did you think about that specific theme that I'm referencing? I think most people will understand when I'm talking about something another character does that's really immoral. So let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.